you filthy swines! Get in here, sit down, we're going to read some news. I'm not a fan of misanthropists or misanthropy. I understand where some people come from, particularly if they're depressed. Maybe they look down on their own experiences as being unworthy. A lot of our culture seems to encourage that kind of negativity. So I'm suspicious of the directions from which misanthropy comes from. I'm going to try and change my tack from being critical of these misanthropists and trying to encourage them to see the brighter side, maybe. Well, anyway, this article on Vox, written by Sigil Samuel. I like her. She's a good lass. Give her a clap. She does some good articles. I'm disgusted to be human. What to do when you hate your own species. Yes, it hurts to be a human right now. That's actually the assignment. I would say that we're perhaps in the most empowered position humanity has ever been in. There's a lot of good in the world, and I think we can achieve more good by singing. Anyway, let's see what she says here. We claim to cherish the natural world, yet every great achievement, story, and cup of coffee has done nothing for any other creature but ourselves. So when the existence of the human race is at the cost of everything else, when the hypocrisy is open, and we all know, how am I supposed to look anyone in the eye or feel good about participating in a world where every human act is at the expense of the natural world that birthed us? I've lost the will. I realize this sounds infantile, but the numbers are in, and I'm no longer sure what we think we're doing as a species other than trying to create the perfect consumer. The world be damned. We're addicted to self, and I'm frankly disgusted to be human. Okay, I share some of your sentiments here, except the last one. And also, we are also natural. The technologies that we create are as natural to us as a spider web is to a spider or a bird's nest is to a bird. So you may not like the world, but it is a human world and it is a natural world. We are part of the world. We are part of this planet. Dear anti-human human, underneath the hard feelings you're feeling, disgust, anger, loathing are probably much softer feelings. Disappointment, sadness, fear about the future. It's hard to stay with those because they make us feel vulnerable. It's so much easier to bypass them and go straight to hate. Standing in judgment over your own kind is not exactly fun, but it does give you a feeling of moral elevation. I'm not surprised that throughout history, countless people have looked at the human species and responded with a big yuck. As early as the 17th century BCE, we've projected our disgust with ourselves onto the gods, imagining that they find us so awful that the great flood is needed to wipe us off the face of the earth. Only a handful of us are decent enough to be saved, for example, in an ark. Atras's family in the Mesopotamian version of the story, Noah's family in the Bible's later retelling. Since then, anti-humanism has enjoyed resurgence after resurgence. It's often popped up at times of civilizational scale catastrophe, from the bubonic plague that ravaged Europe in the 14th century to the wars of religion in the 17th century to the atomic age in the 20th century. And now that we're living through a human-induced climate crisis, anti-humanism is once again in the ascendant, especially among a vocal minority of environmental activists who seem to welcome the end of destructive Homo sapiens. I don't know, I see us as being very constructive, and also there are a lot of these former advocates of environmentalism, environmental fear-mongering, that have kind of changed their tune. I saw a video earlier on of Larry Fink going on about how we need better energy supply for AI and that solar and wind won't do. And I've seen Bill Gates change his tune as well. So to me, the political side of environmentalism is waning, and perhaps we can get more realistic about being good stewards of this planet. There's even a voluntary human extinction movement which advocates for us to stop having kids so that humanity will fade out and the Earth will return to good health. Well, I think we're the best thing to have happened to this planet, to be honest. If the idea of spreading life throughout the cosmos doesn't excite you, then I find it hard to find common ground with you, which is a shame, really, because life wants to spread and grow. And it's not going to do that without some intelligence to actually get it off this planet. And, you know, we are effectively birthing life into the universe, potentially, which is a bloody good thing, in my opinion. Give that a clap. And eventually life will become extinct on the Earth, no matter what you do. You get rid of humans, life will go extinct. The sun will swell. Everything will go. There's no guarantee there's life elsewhere. I'd like to think there is, but I don't know if there is. So we have a responsibility to, I think, terraform the universe. That's what I think. If you don't like that, then you're not me. You describe your own loathing for humanity as infantile, but I'd use a different word to describe it given what a popular response it's been over the millennia. Frankly, it's a little basic. And deep down, you know it makes no sense. Those humans that you're so angry at, they didn't just come from nature, as you noted, they're part of nature, the nature that you love so much. We are all natural organisms. Exactly. Well done, Sigil Samuel. I think that what you're really chafing against is not humanity, but one particular way of relating to the world, a highly extractive way that some humans leaned into at a particular moment and that happens to be having its time in the sun right now. The dualistic intellectual tradition that tells us we can be separate from nature and that we should treat the natural world as an object to be exploited for human gain rather than as a subject to be communed with and respected is a Western tradition that took off in modernity. We can trace it back to the 17th century philosophers like Descartes, who argued that the soul is totally distinct from mere matter and that only humans have souls, and Francis Bacon, good man that, who developed the scientific method. I think there are lots of examples out there of other creatures exploiting the environment for their personal benefits, and the only difference is that we're extremely clever and good at doing it. You know, if you could give rabbits the ability to farm, they would, wouldn't they? If you suddenly had intelligent rabbits, I bet they'd be making power stations and digging up coal and stuff. It's not a human thing, it's a life progressing through intelligence arc thing, in my opinion. Before thinkers like these came on the scene, most spiritual and philosophical traditions around the world, from the ancient Greeks to the indigenous peoples of the Americas, from Hindus in India to followers of Shintoism in Japan, believed that all living things had some degree of soul in them. Many believe it of non-living things too, like mountains or rivers. This led to lifestyles more in balance with the rest of nature. I certainly believe most creatures that have brains have some level of consciousness. That's my opinion. And if you've ever been close friends with a dog, you'll know that those chaps and chapettes can actually be pretty profound and awesome. But after the 17th century, it became increasingly common to try to turn everything in nature into a commodity, even past the point of sustainability. Today's hyper-capitalism feels like the culmination of that trend. Ah, that's a word that I thought I coined. Suppose it's not. It's two words combined. It's not exactly hyper-capitalism at the moment that I would see going on. Hyper-capitalism for me describes space industry and automation. That's hyper-capitalism. But I suppose we're heading towards that. Knowing the history here is helpful because it reminds us that our current paradigm isn't set in stone. Unfettered hyper-capitalism wasn't always the norm, and anti-humanism wasn't always the reigning mood. And in fact, if we peer back just a little before the arrival of Descartes and Bacon, we find a flowering of just the opposite. Renaissance humanism and the tradition that emphasized just how beautiful and wonderful human beings can be. Here's the 16th century humanist philosopher Michel de Montaigne writing in his essays. There's nothing so beautiful and legitimate as to play the man well and properly, no knowledge so hard to acquire as the knowledge of how to live this life well and naturally, and the most barbarous of our maladies is to despair our being. Indeed. To Montaigne, human life was a gift from God. And when someone offers you a gift, the worst thing you can do is despise it. We wrong that great and all-powerful giver by refusing his gift, nullifying it and disfiguring it, he wrote. The best thing you can do, enjoy it, cultivate it. Here's Montaigne again. I love life and cultivate it just as God has been pleased to grant it to us. I accept with all my heart and with gratitude what nature has done for me, and I am pleased with myself and proud of myself that I do. When I first read this quote in Sarah Bakewell's delightful history of humanism titled Humanly Possible, I wondered why Montaigne specified that he feels proud of himself for loving life. Is that really something to be proud of? The more I think of it, the more I see the answer is yes. It's hard to be human. It's hard in the days of the Renaissance humanists when plague, famine, and hostilities between political factions decimated communities, and it's hard in any other day too. It's painful to see pictures of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch full of our thrown away plastic, to watch huge swathes of rainforest being cut down to graze cattle for our hamburgers. It would be beef burgers, love, not hamburgers. To those billions of birds that once added colour and song and ecosystem services to our world. It's painful to know that so much of that is being done to satisfy our greed. Yet that doesn't mean humanity is the cancer of the planet. Remember, humanity can't be a stain on nature. We are nature. Also, nature itself isn't something pure idyll. It's often red in tooth and claw, and other animals also act in their own interests, reshape ecosystems, and drive species extinct. Exactly. Well done. The more accurate description of humanity is that we are an unusually clever ape with unusual capacities for both cooperation and greed, currently leaning way too much into the latter. So what should you do with all of that? First of all, just let yourself feel the pain. Feel the disappointment, sadness, fear, and all other soft feelings. See, I don't have any of that, so that doesn't really apply to me. I think what we need is some perspective on what we are capable of bringing versus what we are told we are taking. And the fact that we could spread life is gigantic. It's something that shouldn't be ignored. And the fact that we can create new species, many people won't like me saying that, but we can create more species than we are making extinct. We can also bring species back. So there are definite positives to life in general and this planet because of us. If we disappear and all that's left in our wake is a anomalous explosion in diversity, maybe future hyper-intelligent rabbits will look back in time and go, what happened during the Anthropocene explosion? You know, maybe they won't have any evidence of us being intelligent, but suddenly there'll be creatures that are extremely diverse and new phylums and all sorts of stuff that may occur. I don't know, I'm just saying. It can be so overwhelming to really tune into the incomprehensibly large suffering of the natural world that you'll be tempted to run away, to retreat into a fatalistic, ugh, we're the worst. Resist that impulse that lets you off the hook too easily because it expects nothing of you. Stay with the damn pain. I don't have pain, love. But if you do, do what you're saying, maybe. And then notice that the fact that you're feeling this pain is actually giving you a beautiful piece of information that you have other capacities too for cooperation and care and compassion. And you wish for us all to do better. If you didn't have those capacities, that wish, you wouldn't feel the pain. According to the Buddhist scholar and environmental activist Joanne Macy, this process of honoring our pain of the world is essential. When we learn to reframe our pain as suffering with our feeling compassion for the world, we see it as a strength and as evidence of our interconnectedness with other life forms. Once we shifted away from dualistic thinking and appreciate that we are not separate from nature, we're ready to move into what Macy calls active hope. We usually think of hope as a feeling which you either have or you don't, depending on how likely you think success is. But Macy says that's wrong. Hope is a practice. It means that you commit to an act on behalf of the things you love, regardless of the probability of success. It's very honorable. You're not betting on outcomes, you're choosing what kind of person you want to be and how you want to show up for the world, without requiring a guarantee that you'll succeed. Exactly. Again, well done. Yes, I think the pursuit of happiness is very important, but actually having a target for happiness is misleading. Happiness is a byproduct of a life well lived. So, yeah, exactly. That's how I see that. The no guarantees bit is part of the ethos of Buddhism, which recommends that we act without attachment to outcomes. That doesn't mean we don't have goals and don't try to use the most effective methods of achieving. It just means we have the courage to act even while knowing that we can't fully control what ultimately happens to the things we love. In my experience, that's really hard to do. When I love someone or something, I desperately want to be able to protect them, to know with certainty that they'll be okay. So every time I manage to practice active hope, I really do feel Montaigne-style pride of myself. I hope you will too. And I think there is a lot of astroturf for misanthropy because it pushed the politicized environmentalism, which is waning. It's not as popular now because, you know, people are tired of the activists. They don't want to have to deal with that. And also, I know they like to say the science is settled, but science is never settled. So that's pretty dangerous. I don't really like that position. Yes, there are hideous things that go on in the world. There are also amazing things that are going on in the world. As Sigil Salming mentions, maybe your negativity can be rerouted to being inspiration for positive action and get involved with environmentalism in a positive way, not by throwing cans of tomato soup at artwork and gluing your hands to the road. That's nonsense. By actually getting involved with charities to, I don't know, just become involved. If you're bothered, do something. Do something positive. Plant trees. You know, work in an animal shelter. do stuff. I don't know. Maybe don't donate so much. I'm worried about where money goes when you donate money now. I've done that in the past, but I'm not personally going to do that anymore. I think if you can donate your time to do something positive, pick up trash, do stuff, that's perfect. That's great. Do that and have hope. There's always hope, always. And happiness will just plop in your lap when you least expect it. That's what happens to me anyway. That's it for now. Thank you for joining me. If you like what I do, hit the like button wherever you are. But that is it for now. And the only thing I have left to say is Pigwig out.
Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oink, oink, wee, squeal, snort, snort, oinkity, squee. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Snort, snuffle, oink, squee, squeal, wee, snort, oinkity, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Squeal, squeal. Snort, shuffle, oink, re-squeal, re-snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, 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 snuffle, re-squeeze, snort, oink, squeal, oink, oink, oinkity, squeeze, squeal, re-re-re, snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squeal, oink, 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 re-re,